and welcome to Parent Tips, the channel for parents and by parents like myself. We've had a very good time the past 4 weeks talking about nannies and caregivers. And first of all, I really want to thank you first for watching, for subscribing, for liking, but most of all for interacting with us around that topic. We got a lot of questions. We got a lot of feedback on how to do our videos better, but even more feedback on the issue of nannies and caregivers. And above all, we hope that you got as much information as you needed. And I hope that that series was helpful to you. Yeah. So, as I promised, we are going to kick off on discipline and children this week. And this is a very sensitive topic because this is those topics of feelings, catching my feelings, and people catch feelings because your opinions do not augur well with them, or they do not agree with your opinions. But as I said, this channel is basically partly for sharing from my experiences, the things that work for me, the things that don't work for me. And so I will repeat before we begin this series, please pick out what you need to pick out and leave out what you need to leave out. This is what works for me. So the Oxford Dictionary defines discipline as, and that is the verb discipline, not the noun. So it's a doing word. It's tied to an action. So discipline is training to obey rules or a code of behavior to correct disobedience. So the training is directly related to a code of behavior or a rule, and the training is directly related to correcting disobedience. Yeah. And so it really made sense when I got that basic definition, and that's something we cannot disagree on. It's basic. And so when I tried to translate it to myself, then I thought of this whole discipline word this way, that it is to train my child to obey rules or a code of behavior and to correct disobedience. So the whole process of discipline, which is a doing verb word, which is connected to action, is a process of intentional teaching, coaching, and mentoring a child so that they can follow certain rules that you've set for them based on your values, or a certain code of behavior that you've set for them based on your values. And the training is also designed to correct disobedience. And so this tells me that discipline has a lot to do with you as a parent, because you have to be intentional about training the child. You also have to be intentional about pointing the child to rules or a code of behavior that falls in line with your values as a parent. Thirdly, you have to correct disobedience. How that happens is largely based on how you need to guide your child to become the best version of themselves, or to become basically a mature and responsible adult. And so now it's easy to see why there's a growing number of people who feel that they can live according to whatever code of behavior they want to live by. They can live according to whatever set of rules they want to live by, and not expect consequences, or not expect correction for disobedience. And so if there's anything that you pick from this episode today, remember, discipline is about training or teaching or coaching. Discipline is about pointing your child to a certain set of rules or code of behavior. And lastly, discipline is about correcting disobedience. If that's the only thing you remember from this episode, I will be happy. I came across a quote as I was researching for this particular topic on disciplining children. And that quote said, "The difference between punishment and discipline is a powerful child." And so what we're talking about in this series is not punishment. It's discipline, because I feel punishment is driven by fear. You know, when you think of being punished, you feel fear and you feel dread. On the other hand, discipline is fueled by love. And the fact that I know we all love our children, me included, and we want the best for our children. And the best not only in terms of provision and material things, a good education, a good life. We also want the best for them in terms of them growing into mature and responsible adults who are able to manage relationships, adults who are able to observe boundaries, adults who are able to live successful lives, both in terms of finances, in terms of spiritual well-being, in terms of emotional well-being. And I'm sure that's what we all want for our children. And so discipline is driven by love, punishment is driven by fear. And so before we close this episode and begin on something next week, I want to just encourage us in that light, that even as we correct our children, let us remember that we are correcting them not because we dislike them, not because we hate them, but because we love them. And when we realize that, then we are able to discipline them in the right way. I know we've all heard of cases where people in authority have really taken advantage or really pushed the boundaries as concerns correction. Children have been physically abused within the context of being disciplined or being corrected. But if driven by the motivation of love, we realize that there needs to be a delicate balance of having a healthy relationship with this child and also correcting them in a healthy way. And I will not be here to tell people what to do and what not to do. I think my interest with this topic is to basically lay the foundation and to try and lay the ground rules so that you can build on that as a parent based on your values and see this is how to discipline. I will definitely give examples from my own life on how I discipline my own children, how I correct and guide my own children. But that is not to say that you should go home and do the same. My hope is that you shall design something that works for you and for your family and for your child based on the values that you live for. So as we go, please remember the words we pointed out at the beginning of this episode. Discipline is about training or teaching or coaching. Discipline is about pointing your child to a code of behavior or a set of rules. And discipline is also about correcting disobedience. Please remember that. Now, as we prepare for next week, we'll be talking about parenting styles and how that affects your discipline in the home or disciplining your children, and we're really looking forward to that. Please follow us on Instagram, like our page, Facebook page, and also subscribe on our YouTube channel, Parent Tips KE. Give us feedback, direct us on some of the things you want us to talk about as we prepare for our interview coming up later in the coming weeks. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful time. Cheers.